Well, it's all these large language models. They are models, of course, and they've been training on a given data set. Some of these are being trained on, most of them, they've been trained on a data set found online, which is very, very big. It's a big data. It's a very huge data that is there that has been training these models for quite some time. But then you also, if, for instance, if you're using ChatGPT, there is a way you prompt. When you're prompting, then you can get more accurate information than some other person who is prompting. Again, this again follows a kind of a framework whereby the environment is being improved over time. And for the technical people who are watching us, it's like they are keeping updating the weights. If, for instance, you're talking about deep learning, so the weights are being kept updated.
AI is the new kid on the block
Definitely.
for
Yes.
technology.
Yes.
And so, Victor, how is it different from other software?
Okay. Thank you. Maybe let me just reiterate what is AI, because I believe this is one of these words that can have many meanings at the same time. But the first person who coined this word, artificial intelligence, is a gentleman, Professor John McCarthy, and that is back in 1950s. I think if I'm not mistaken, it's 1956 to be precise. So he was really trying to see how he could mimic just using computing power. And this was a research paper, but some people, of course, argue that, of course, he just used this AI to attract attention, to attract fans, because this is something that could only open eyes to whoever is trying to. The audience will be like, excited to hear what is happening. Nonetheless, there is no consensus of. There's no scientific consensus on what is actually human intelligence. So that's why we fall into these many definitions of what is artificial intelligence. But if I could just do a little bit of justice on this word, it's really, as you mentioned, like really why there are people calling it artificial intelligence is that factor of how do you mimic human intelligence using computers. But before you mimic that, there is even a way to represent tasks or problems that could be solved by we humans, but on a strictly mathematical point. But this is not the only framework of how we humans solve problems, that I believe. But of course, McCarthy wrote a very good paper that is now even, we are seeing the applications of it. Maybe I will deep dive as questions coming. One of the surges that we've been seeing is now the deep learning, especially when these companies like NVIDIA, OpenAI, Meta, all these big companies, when they're talking about artificial intelligence, normally what they're trying to say is deep learning, which is again a branch. Again, we will keep unlocking all this lingo that keep buzzing into this AI world. Whoever is in this domain, or whoever who is not in this domain, could actually understand what it is, at least on a superficial level, or on the basics of the definition of the words. So yeah, I'm happy again to discuss this topic.
Thank you very much, Victor. I think you said a subject or a word that can scare some people off. You said that it is on basically mathematical principles. So, but AI is becoming more of a business tool, which I think some people are claiming in the Western world to become overnight millionaires by using very simple AI tools to run businesses for like enterprise that could not do it for themselves. I think you've seen it on LinkedIn and other spaces where AI is claiming to be the next economic driver, even for those who want to be self-employed. So does it really need a mathematical background? At which level do you think that someone, the average person who is not an engineer, can also develop these AI solutions?
Yeah, basically, when I said about on a mathematical point of view, it's really strictly on a non-physiological point of view, just as a representation of logic. But it's really like the way me and you speak. We have a way to mimic what we're trying to speak through writing. So I can represent what I want you to understand from me by just giving you a piece of paper that is written. And then because we have a convention of writing, you can still understand what I'm trying to mean. So this is exactly the same when you're talking about this logic and mathematics. It's really a representation of logic. So meaning me and you, we have logic, everyone has logic, but the mathematical world, the mathematicians have, taken a little bit further into their studies to be able to abstract this logic, to put it aside so that even we talk about would understand the thinking process. So again, when you talk about, it's not a difference because again, all in all, it's all about solving problems, and that's why they put up platforms, frameworks that when you under the hood, there is a lot of mathematics going on. But of course, for the interface for me and you to understand, it's simplistic as anyone who is doing arts, who's doing anything, who's not necessarily into the science and engineering world, could really use these tools to solve their everyday to-day tasks, because that is the end goal. Yeah.
So basically, the architecture of built on mathematics, but like all programming and other computer applications, there is an interface for users of different domains.
Definitely.
So anybody can go there to the application layer and build whatever solution they are trying to sell. So like we saw last time, our innovator from Yali Labs, they developed the Kinyarwanda language model. So we're seeing already a response even from within our societies who want to drive the AI, business further.
Yes.
Yeah. So how is it different from big data that we are already conversed with, maybe in the technology world, where we talk about big data as inputs, but now how is AI quite coming differently to this?
Yeah, and of course, what is the linkages between data and AI? Maybe if I step back a bit, there is a way we assume that all these words, these buzzing words, are really understood by the common people, which I mean, again, I'm skeptical, because like the word data itself, or data itself, when you ask someone what is data, they might tell you, okay, data is information. But if you really look at it, any recording, it's a form of information that you couldn't probably understand at face value, because maybe it's a number, maybe it is a record, maybe it is something that doesn't necessarily make any useful information to you at face value, until you apply it, until you start using all these models to uncover patterns, to uncover hidden information. Then that's when you draw information out of this data. And because of this digitalization surge that has happened, even here in Rwanda, we have like this, we have this tremendous digitalization, all services are online, everything. So we leave behind a lot of data. And this data could uncover other information that maybe someone who is doing business could be needing. Maybe that's where you come from and talk about big data. But then all these models really play a role into that value chain to be able, at the end of the day, to have a very meaningful information that could be used. Maybe, like, just to give an example of exactly what you're saying, with Yali Labs and all these other companies that are into the NLP, the natural language processing, who are using LLMs and others. The Kinyarwanda that you're speaking, or the other language that we speak, they are structured. And if I try to be a little bit mathematical, every word has a probability associated to it. Like in a sentence, not all words have the same probability. So there is again conditional probability, if I may go take a bit, but it means that one word that can really have a higher probability depending on the previous word that has been spoken. So these models really statistically gather all these patterns, and you come up with a concrete model, which is basically a software that has records of these patterns. Then you can use this in maybe generating text, maybe generating other text, generating other voice, a new sentence. So then this becomes something useful, maybe for the ChatGPT users, they all know about this, but maybe even other applications. Let me just give you time for you to ask me questions. But again, I'm always starting from a point of view of ChatGPT because most of us, we were introduced to AI, at least on this scale, through ChatGPT. But there are other applications as well that maybe I'll give maybe a couple of examples. One, just to give it like a kind of another vibe, if I may call it like that. Yeah.
Yes. So, but is it correct to assume that ChatGPT or AI is at which level of accuracy? Because just recently I browsed myself and I wanted to see what they have about me, and one version of AI gave me a totally limited knowledge of my profile than another one. So I was wondering, are these models, are these different AIs knowledgeable, or they can be compared in terms of accuracy? And how can we, as business people or decision makers, rely on AI at this point to give us accurate data?
Okay, yes. Well, it's all these large language models, they are models, of course, and they've been training on a given data set. Some of these have been trained on, most of them, they've been trained on a data set found online, which is very, very big. It's a big data. It's a very huge data that is there that has been training these models for quite some time. But then you also, if, for instance, if you're using ChatGPT, there is a way you prompt. When you're prompting, then you can get more accurate information than some other person who is prompting. Again, this follows a kind of a framework whereby the environment is being improved over time. And for the technical people who are watching us, it's like they are keeping updating the weights. If, for instance, you're talking about deep learning, so the weights are being kept updated. For people who are in this space, again, they know what is recurring neural networks, like, still having like a way to backpropagate or to self-improve. So all these play a role into giving you accuracy. So there is that huge data set that is being trained on, but there is also what you're keeping providing it, because it keeps updating the environment in which it is updating its domain of truth. So basically it is that. And maybe for the low resource languages like Kinyarwanda or other Bantu language that don't have necessarily the equal literature online, falls into that part where you don't have like enough data set to train these models to be more accurate, like how they're using other languages like English or French or other languages that have been online for quite some time. So there is also that there are many factors that come into play. But of course, there is also the hardware part, but maybe we'll discuss that later on. But because again, all these models are hosted by these giants like Nvidia and others. So basically we have like we could maybe the problem could be looked at maybe on a point of view of the data set that the model has been trained on, rather than on the upper side, which is the infrastructure side. Yeah.
So, like all forms of learning, then AI becomes an expert with the level of exposure
Yes.
to the data that it needs to fetch. So then in our dialect, our local languages would then need a lot of exposure before they become experts in these subject matters. So, well, a very sensitive question now. How confidential is our communication, or our, how are we going to be safe? You see, in terms of communication to each other, there's some information that is not supposed to go out there, but then the AI tool is learning and checking your information to gather as much data as possible, so that it becomes a subject matter expert, as we had mentioned before, so that when they browse my profile, they'll be able to see everything about me using AI. So then what information will remain confidential then?
Yeah.
Online.
That is a very good question, because it is linking to the ethics part of AI, and what are the instruments that are available in our ecosystem that could safeguard our personal data, if I may call it like that, right? So we have there are legal instruments as of now. The personal data protection law that is in place, but there is also the policy itself of AI that takes this part of ethical guidelines as a pillar by itself, of which whoever is developing these tools should first read what are the rules of the games of the land, right? What is it that is allowed to be done, and what is it that is not allowed to be done? Because again, there is penalties that are associated to it. But again, by principle, technologically, it is possible to really, give up all your privacy rights. It's possible, especially when the government is not aware, or when the policymakers are lagging behind technology, which is, again, unfortunately, something that really happens. But then, at least for Rwanda, we've seen kind of a collaboration between policymakers, opinion leaders, and of course technologists coming together, and of course coming up with some of these instruments that could guide, but really help this technology to advance, but not at the cost of actually not at the cost of harming, not at the cost of harming, what if it is personal data breaches or any other. So there is that kind of collaboration that is in place, that is happening, and that's why we have all these instruments and these policies that kind of reflect on some of the use cases, like the one that you just mentioned about SMSs and otherwise.
So now you're mentioning that it is critical to regulate the AI tools and developments. Definitely. So then the startups that are thinking of innovating in this space, which limitation will they have in terms of the regulation? And I'm not just talking about Rwanda, but even comparing to the advanced economies and technically developed places, comparing to Africa, where the regulations are just setting up. So how much freedom will we give the startups now that are the ones that are leading? I think they would be the ones leading this innovation within Africa.
Well, again, as much as I'm talking about regulation, but again, there is also a way of optimizing this regulation in such a way that they don't stiff innovation as well. So another way is really to look at it on another point of view, whereby how do you make even this data available to the startups? How do you make it cheaper for startups to get data so that they could train their models and, of course, do all the gymnastics around AI? But we here, at least maybe here in Rwanda, again, I only speak about Rwanda because it's the ecosystem that I work in. So, like this data sharing policy that has been accepted by our leaders, um, again, this is again another tool, another way to provide data that is withheld by service providers, government being one of the primordial service providers, especially government services. So there's a lot of data that the government has. So how do we put this data in such a format that does not harm personal or actually protect your personal data, your rights as an individual, but while also providing this data so that other insights could be drawn out of them? Because again, this is all about really drawing insights, drawing information out of data, how to, all these patterns that could really provide valuable information that could be used. So government is really playing this role of how do we now put standards, how do we ensure that some of this data, this one is deemed to be confidential, this one can be shareable. So that framework is there, and we will see all these startups really benefiting from this data that is available through all these platforms that we have.
Thank you. Viewers, once again, welcome back to The Niche at The Niche 2025 on YouTube, X, and our Facebook page. Visit, share the videos, comment. We need your inputs because these are new domains. And of course, the innovators are also looking to the public to get the relevant spaces of what to innovate in. So, Victor, you talked about innovation and the startups and even individuals who are thinking about innovating in AI. So what are the probabilities when it comes to patents and patent rights?
Yes. Again, we are a bit fortunate that AI is new to most of us, to everybody. Yeah, of course, the word, as I said, has been coined a while ago, but the capabilities of training models to be able to really do this mimic human intelligence when it comes to solving problems, it's of recent. Maybe if I give you a little bit of background, we've already, I mean, computer is like the brain of the computer is the CPU, the central processing unit.
Yes.
But the CPU in itself, if you look at itself, like it has few cores, and if I may say, a core is just like the smallest unit that could do a full process. That means like fetching instruction, decoding them, executing them, and of course loading or storing them. So now these CPUs were built just to solve structural problems, very structural problem, or what we like monolithic thinking or deterministic. Like for instance, if I give you an example, if you are going to if I give you like a premise of a question, and you get a result, if I give you more premises of the question, the only thing that you can have is many results. You cannot have few. But that is not how we people think, because we have a lot of assumptions. That's how AI actually works. It's because now, the more information you can give, actually, I can even reduce the area of responding, if I may call it like that. But let me just go to this surge of now GPUs that we've been seeing, graphic processing unit. This is a technology that has been there. It's only that it has been like it only works like a very, very simplistic tasks, but it has many cores that are working at the same time. So NVIDIA came up with a way to be able to democratize programming through the GPUs, right? So which again really made this whole thinking, this whole papers, this whole literature about AI now being applicable. So now, what does that mean? It means that going forward, we are starting almost at the same playing ground. Of course, there are people who are doing a lot of investments. Again, I'll not go there. I mean, all these big countries are doing a lot of investment in that area, and that's why, of course, they own most of the infrastructure. If you look at it like that, but when it comes to us, our innovators, our startups, for them, they have a very good chance because they understand the markets, so they can really come up with a new model that could maybe be trained like in a very few, without using many resources, because they understand the domain in which they're operating in. And then there is a way to really patent that model. There is a way to patent that way of thinking in such a way that if someone wants to use it, can still use it. For instance, our languages are maybe similar to other languages in our area, like the Bantu language. Someone might come up with a model that really could help even not only Kinyarwanda, but also Kirundi, Kiswahili, other languages in the region, in such a way that whoever is trying to come up with a chatbot, for instance, that is solving for, I don't know, community health workers, like last time we talked about community health workers, for maybe Swahili, you start from there, you don't start from scratch. So there is a way to patent that. So there are many avenues of really monetizing this technology for our startups and our innovators. And actually, the sky is only the limit here.
Yeah, a very deep understanding of the GPUs and the startup accessibility into the AI innovation tools. So, how are we as Africa enabled with probably less resources, less computing resources to play into this AI space?
Yes. Maybe to give a little bit of perspective, if you're talking about a data center that is using GPUs to train like an average one, it can really range around, 40 megawatts. That's what I read in the papers. So what does that mean? That means like it's almost a tenth of Kigali households' power that is being used. So that is a lot of power. So there is that infrastructure shortcoming when it comes to Africa, because of course the investment, of course we still need infrastructure development. That is a fact. But again, our policymakers, our decision leaders, because of the high end or the return on investment that are expected when it comes to artificial intelligence, it is worth investing or co-investing. And we are lucky that Rwanda has been very brave when it comes to co-investing. You remember when they started with the 4G, it started really a long time ago when no one really could picture maybe by then of how 4G was relevant by then, because maybe not many applications were there, but of course government had the vision. But now, because now we are now using a lot of services online, you can see how 4G now is like really something needed. So that kind of early investment, I believe Rwanda will do it. I'm really looking forward, because again there is a lot to benefit from it when it comes really to this new technology that is emerging, that is really solving a lot of these problems that would otherwise take longer to solve.
So Rwanda is always ahead of the game when it comes to ICT investment, awareness creation, accessibility to the citizens, and hence it has been probably been an ICT hub in the region. But talking across, maybe across Africa, with that limitation of the infrastructure, does it put Africa at a less advantage than probably America, which has all these tech giants and infrastructure, and is probably seen to be owning these technologies? With a bit of competition from China.
Yes. Of course, if the more they invest in these technologies, the ahead they get comparatively to Africa. But again, technology has its way of really becoming an equalizer. Some of these models, you really see that they cannot be relevant when it comes to applications. For instance, if you're training a model using data from a very distant community, it might not be very relevant to the current community that you're probably applying their model to. Nonetheless, There is a lot to be uncovered, but again, Africa shouldn't really shy away from making these bold decisions when it comes to investing, because technology is really advancing and no one is waiting for us. And again, we have like the predominantly young people who are like the young people are like explorers by nature. So let if Africa could give them really a chance to, to innovate and to be there on the global market and to compete, that would be something that would be very welcomed by our fellow Africans. So that's maybe what I may say about that. But of course, um, as you mentioned, all these mega countries who have like all these investments that they are doing, of course, they have like an advantage comparatively to other countries that are not doing the same, the equal investments when it comes to infrastructure around AI.
Yes, the unfair advantage of AI is being too knowledgeable as an individual or as a professional. You will definitely stay relevant in the professional world. So those people that are phasing out in technology, yet they have been experts in their domain, and they are cross-cutting in the medicine world. People with long-term experiences, but probably haven't yet latched onto the AI, have not been really that exposed to it. Do you think they are at risk from the younger upcoming, not so skilled people, but who can use AI to their advantage?
Well, I'm on a different school of thought, because um, when I was reading about models and all these things, I was trying to see like where is it like where can we really apply all this? Of course, language models, the obvious one. We all know about these ChatGPTs and everything. But imagine a subject that we've maybe learned in class about genetics, genomes, and all these things. Mind you that there are companies that are really building models to be able to understand what are the patterns that they could uncover in a genome being like a sequence of genetic material. Um, then even they could maybe draw conclusions. What are the factors that could cause cancer? How could they prevent? How could they even edit the genome? There is a very interesting paper that is being produced around that. But what does that even say? It means that some of this knowledge that people have, you don't have to think that it's outdated. It's only a matter of now using these tools to harness them. And maybe even you can end up creating very funny, you can even end up creating like a new way of really modeling what you've learned. People who are doing who did mechanics, maybe probably they understand the dynamics of an engine better than
Yes.
someone who's doing so. Then if they couple that with these technologies, they can really come up with a very interesting product that could be relevant even more. Maybe to our young people, artificial intelligence, I've been hearing people talking about how AI is, distilling our education. Of course, you can say that. If you ask a question, if you're still asking the question to get an answer as a teacher, of course, a kid could just prompt it and, of course, give you an answer. But actually, the advantage that I'm seeing ahead is that now children are at an advantage of not waiting until they understand fully the concept. They can still be doing something while learning the concept. So this is a very interesting thing that I will look at. I will see what will yield in the future. Like for instance, for us, we had like to sit down maybe for 6 years to understand, then another 6 years, then afterwards, you end up now trying to apply. But now people could really do the same at the same time, learning while doing. So AI is actually maybe, why not? Maybe this is the technology that is actually going to see our countries really being proactive when it comes to applying science, applying even arts. Why not?
Talk. Have you heard about the AI glasses, which can be, a student can put on those glasses and, read everything. They read and they listen and they also talk as, no, not talk, but show you what the answer is. So those AI glasses are quite, maybe they are a necessity, but also a threat.
Yes, you can look at it like that, but it's because we are only thinking on the point of view of the simplistic problems that we've been solving. Because the problems that we've been solving are very simplistic in such a way that a simple model could learn them in a few seconds and then give you answers. But problems now that maybe the next generation will be facing will be even bigger. We're talking about climate change, we're talking about all these other threats that probably could, actually this could be actually a tool that enables them to tackle these big problems that for us now we don't have the capabilities to solve. This gives me, like, it brings me back in time when we were not allowed to use calculators in primary. Because of course they wanted to see if you could, do the multiplication, addition, and the combination of all these operations. But of course, it's because we are really the range of the solutions, or the range of the problems that we are solving are very limited, they're very small. But really think of the next generation, the problem that they will be facing. I believe these technologies will enable them really to now, go head to head with these problems and maybe stand a chance to solve them.
Study ahead, get more than you could get from the teacher.
Yes.
Or from the library.
Definitely.
So now let's wind up with an economic question.
Okay.
Now AI, from what I have heard from you and what I've been researching, seems like the gold of the next century. So how is it going to be economically placed? We have seen oil, gold, and other commodities running the economy because they are so precious.
Yes.
What about, how do you compare AI? Is it going to be like any other technology that adds value, or it's going to be a really differentiated in terms of its economic value?
Again, I'm not an expert in economics, but I don't know, maybe I'll just try to think aloud. By the way, AI, I think, is one way of thinking aloud. It's like, okay. So, if we're talking about commodities, the disadvantages of having a commodity like gold, it's because it has like a resource, it has a limited resource, so the resource can decline over time. But what data can do, it can only increase
and improve.
Models can only improve. So at some point, I'm only seeing artificial intelligence really being embedded into the very economic of countries and the very economic of people. I'm seeing the future really. People could, intertwine their lives with artificial intelligence in every domain, within medicine, in every domain, in every aspect of our lives in the future.
Thank you very much, Victor, for sharing with us your enhanced thinking. And, you have done a lot of research in this AI domain. So any final words or call to action?
Oh, thank you.
Observation?
Thank you, Lydia, again, to give me a chance to have this beautiful conversation about AI. It's a passion that I have. Maybe the call for action, I'm only seeing young people really being interested. Of recent, there is a team that is going to go to China to compete on the global stage in artificial intelligence. The competition is called International Olympiad in Artificial Intelligence. Really, it's beautiful to see our young people who are in high school being interested in artificial intelligence. And I'm really calling upon the young people to start taking serious all these STEM subjects that they've been learning, because now, at least for them, they have a clear path of how they're going to use these STEM subjects. If it's mathematics, physics, chemistry, any engineering, other, even arts, how it can correlate towards artificial intelligence. I was very amazed to see children really playing around when I was in high school, I used just to do matrix multiplication. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just following a procedure and getting to a results, and then you get marks. But you don't understand exactly what you're doing.
And the impact of it.
And the impact of it. But when someone tells you about matrix multiplication, for instance, it's none but really seeing data in a different dimension. Because you can have a perspective of a data set. If you change the dimension, you have another perspective. You change another, then you are really making it more dimensional, which means that you're drawing more conclusions, which means that you are really making your models more robust. So really, if students or if young people could really try to really uncover how these STEM subjects they are learning, link them with artificial intelligence, they stand a chance really to end up really doing very amazing things with their lives. They are going to have like a very interesting professional journey ahead.
Thank you very much. I think Rwanda stands out as having prepared the platform for when these technologies come to play. So the 4G you mentioned is already countrywide. The policies are kind of defined, and the goodwill is also there. So inviting very many innovators in the space. We've been doing some interviews with AI innovators, notably Yali Labs. We invite more innovators to come and share their innovations, their views, and their contributions to this technological evolution. So once again, we thank you, our viewers, and at the Niche 2025 on YouTube, X, and our Facebook page. We also have an Instagram page, and we welcome you to subscribe, share the videos, share your views, give inputs, and we'll be considering them in our next interviews every weekend at the Niche 2025. Stay blessed.
Thank you.